So, let me take you on a ride of our first conversation tonight. And it's about the fear on press freedom in Nigeria under the Buhari administration. Well, for weeks now, there have been debates and some outrage also over media bills being worked upon by federal lawmakers and plan to regulate the media. There is a Press Council bill and the National Broadcasting Commission bill. Practitioners in these sectors are unhappy with some of the move and have alleged plans to gag the media and threats to press freedom in the country. Newspapers in Nigeria have commenced a campaign against media regulations bills being deliberated upon by lawmakers at the National Assembly. Several of the publications issued an advertorial, which you will see right now on your screen, on their front pages to their boldly headline, quote, "Information Blackout," and sponsored by the Nigerian Union of Journalists, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, and the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. They claim that the MPC and the MBC, the Media Act bills, now before the National Assembly, are aimed at restricting the right of citizens to information. According to the advertorial, the bills are not targeted at the media, but also the society's right to know and the right to be heard. However, the sponsor of the MPC Act Amendment Bill, Honorable Segun Odebumi, chairman of the House of Reps Committee on Information, National Orientation, Ethics and Values, said that the amendment is not intended to gag the media, but civil society organizations and rights groups have condemned it as being anti-media.
The bill we are talking about is an existing bill. The existing act. Actually, a lot of issues on it. In fact, some are in the court, from High Court to the Appeal Court, even to the Supreme Court right now. But my opinion is that, why do we need to go to court? We are in a democratic era. And the law gives the National Assembly power to amend the law. This is an act. Even the constitution that is very, very cumbersome in the process of amendment. We engage on it on at least 10. But the act is just a process in the National Assembly, which I believe we can work on it and get the best for us.
That is the sponsor of the Press Council bill, Honorable Segun Odebumi, on this program last week when we tried to get the sense on how and why he sponsored that bill that has been heavily criticized as a move to gag the media. So tonight, we're going to break down the issues for you. The National Assembly and the allegations against the fact that there are plans to gag the media. We have the spokesperson of the National Assembly, Honorable Benjamin KALU. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And one of the sponsors of the Information Blackout Media Campaign is the president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, Mr. KABIR YUSUF. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming tonight on the program. For the sake of our viewers and the society at large, the media is one leg of our democracy. That if our democracy must survive, it needs the media. And so it's very important for us to discuss this matter, and so that perhaps the National Assembly needs to be well informed about the grievances and the pains of practitioners in the sector. Thank you so much, Mr. KABIR YUSUF, for coming tonight. And let's begin the conversation with you. Can you give us an understanding, a sense of the aim of this campaign that your association, which you lead, the Guild of Editors and the NUJ started on the front pages of the newspapers?
Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to join you and express to the public why we're doing all this. First of all, it's not about the press alone, even though we are at the center of it. And that's why we brought you to the public forum, so that the public will know that what is happening in the National Assembly threatens all of us, not just the media, but the public and even the politicians, they will get to know. The tendency is that when politicians are in power, they think they don't need the media, but they realize it only when they're in opposition. And a lot of even the current politicians we have in power, they rode on the back of the media, and now when they're in power, they are now attempting to control or regulate the press. This is not new. That is why Honorable Odubami is right. What he's trying to amend is an existing act which has been there, which has always been opposed by the press, because we think it is not good for democracy to have the press being regulated, being controlled, being punished by a Minister of Information. Because what will happen is that if this becomes law, then there is a press council which is under the Ministry of Information, which will decide who is supposed to work as a journalist, which newspaper should be licensed, what are the fines of infractions, if any, occur. And we don't think this is right for democracy, and that is why we have begun this campaign to involve the public so that they know what we are doing, and that together, all of us, will create a framework where the media operates freely, but at the same time protects the rights of people, so that when they are injured by the media, they have recourse to some kind of mechanism which will address these grievances.
All right. So before I allow the spokesperson of the House to respond or to speak on this matter, Mr. Yusuf, give us a sense of what this is all about, because it's not just an advertorial. It's a campaign, it's a move to get the attention of those who are doing this job in the National Assembly to the grievances of practitioners in the sectors. Within the next few days, what do you hope to achieve with this campaign?
Well, we've started with this funny cartoon, which is on the pages of our papers today, to draw attention. And I can see attention has been drawn. People have suddenly looked at it again, say, oh, look, what are these people trying to say? We will say more tomorrow with editorials, which will explain, you know, the details, why this campaign has started. And we intend to continue engaging both the National Assembly, the government, and all stakeholders in this campaign, because our aim is to convince the National Assembly and the government to work with us to develop a framework of media regulation. We are willing to go on this. We have actually started on our own, and there are examples of countries that do it through their national assemblies. But these are not under the thumbs of particular ministries, which come and go, depending on which political party is in power. So our campaign is very simple. We don't want to continue it forever. It's something that we'll do for a short while, with the aim of drawing attention to it so that we can begin the process. When this process started, if you remember, we complained that we were not even invited to it. We just saw it, that the National Assembly is having a public hearing. And when we said, okay, we will still come, because we learned about it a day earlier, so that to show our goodwill, to show our good faith, that we are not opposed to discussion on the media. We don't think the media is so perfect that there are no laws or no improvements that can be made to it.
All right. Let me allow the spokesperson of the House. I'm still going to come back to you, Mr. Yusuf, because the public also need to understand the extent, the gravity of what the National Assembly is doing, and of course, what some of the other aspects of what the impact this will have on government. Honorable, thank you so much for coming tonight. There's some times where you'll be working, and there probably will be a information communication gap between you and the society. This time around, there is a big gully between what you're doing and the practitioners in the media sector. You heard what Mr. Yusuf said. He said at some point that the media was not even carried along in some of the public hearing. What is the aim of these media bills, the NBC and the Press Council bills?
Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me. And I sincerely want to thank the stakeholders in the media space for being very active with regards to this campaign. You know, if this is what we have done with most of our bills, it will be easier for us to harvest the opinion of Nigerians on pieces of legislations that we handle. And I'm impressed the way their campaign has raised the consciousness of a whole lot of Nigerians with regards to this piece of legislation. If you ask me if the media space needs regulating, I will answer you yes. I say so because of the dangers of fake news and what it has done to economies of the world, and also the gap existing on how the particular stakeholders are regulating themselves, the structures they have set up to be able to monitor the excesses in the industry and to ensure that at the end of the day, what is taken out there remains the facts based on knowledge, not assumption, suppositions, insinuations, hasty conclusions. You will agree with me that recently the National Assembly was accused of wanting to do some manipulations with regards to the Electoral Act. It was spread all over the places. And I came up and I said, we are yet to see that piece of legislation laid before the House by the committee in charge of that. You will also agree with me that information out there was like, we have finished the job on it. And it was meant to rig the next election. I heard you mentioning a governor from the South also talking about that with regards to the electoral bill. As I speak to you, the Electoral Amendment Act is yet to be presented before the House. So that kind of information that hits up the polity, what do we do about it? The PIB came and the news everywhere was that not because we saw that this particular PIB has stayed too long from 2008 till now, and that something needed to be done about it because the energy transition was leaving fossil fuel to renewable energy. And we saw that as the inducement. But what went out there was that the House was induced to pass the bill and that it was to the favor of a particular section of the country. And the news was everywhere. And what is the industry doing about that to make sure that at the end of the day, that the general public that is at the mercy of what they see on the pages of newspaper, that they are fed with the right content? Regulation is the way to go. Then the question becomes, how far do we need to go with this regulation? How do we structure the framework to ensure that the right of expression is not inhibited by this piece of legislation? That is the question that should be on the lips of every Nigerian. Because like he rightly pointed out, we are legislators today, from ruling party. Tomorrow we might be in the opposition. Next tomorrow we may not be politicians. We may be out there. If the press is gagged, then we are finished. It's a constitutional right. And the House has taken a position. And that position of the House is that no attempt to be made by the House to gag the press. That press freedom is where we stand, and it is part of the legislative agenda of the 9th Assembly. Because we saw the press, we saw the media, not just as a tool for dissemination of information, but as a tool for nation building. In building the nation, we need that bridge that is part of democracy like you described, that will be able to communicate what the activities of government is in its true essence to Nigerians who really want to know. That will increase transparency, that will increase accountability, that will make the confidence level of the people that are governed to be high. If that is achieved, you will agree with me that national cohesion will be achieved, as well as, loyalty to the government. That is the role that the media plays in order to increase the loyalty to to the government, and also cohesion. The content that they push out there must be regulated to make sure that it reflects only by the facts. Today, at the media award ceremony organized by the Press Corps of the National Assembly, the House of Rep arm of it, made up of about 81 media platforms, they came to celebrate the National Assembly, the legislative arm, for effective legislative activities in the midst of adversity. They gave award to most of us who have supported the work of the media.
Honorable,
and based on that,
if I may quickly just come in, part of the issues that have been raised in this whole conversation is some of what has been seen as anomalies in some other climes, where you see nobody is saying that things should not be monitored and saying that the right thing is being done, but in the manner in which it's being done in our climb is what has raised the debate and conversation. For example, part of the amendment that is being done is the role and the powers that is going to be given to the Minister of Information, for example, and also whether or not the government should be the one that is regulating both the private and the public media organizations. Isn't this should to be the role of an independent broadcasting commission, where the government will not be able to hack down on the role of the media? And these are some of the concerns. Are you aware? Because there are fear about what is happening in the country right now, where practitioners fear that there is been there's a fear against press freedom and the stifling of the media. So under this kind of atmosphere, and the National Assembly is going about with this NBC and the Press Council bill, it brings a lot of suspicion, and that is a big question.
Our position as the Parliament is to make sure that we clear these gray areas and this fear that you just mentioned. There is no need for this fear. I say so because this bill has passed through second reading. And what passes through second reading is the principles of the bill, the intention of the bill. That is not the final stage of this bill. Let us now sound as if this bill has passed through the National Assembly, all the 9 years of making laws. From this stage, public hearing is where we open up for people to present their input, make their input. Whether you hear of the public hearing a day or two as a stakeholder who appears on the stakeholders administration list, I'm sure it will be published on newspapers, I'm sure it will be on television. You are expected to come and make your input. And the National Assembly, like I've always said, does not make law just for themselves. They make law for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we always yearn to know what the Nigerian feels, the hunger, the desire, the longing of every average Nigerian with regards to a piece of legislation. And they will not be jettisoned. The opinion of these experts, the opinion of those players in the field, in the sector, will always be incorporated. If the proposer of the bill, for example, says it should be XYZ in nature, it doesn't mean it is the position of the House. We are not going to gag the members of the National Assembly from making proposals. How then are we going to know what is a good bill and what is a bad bill? We will allow them to express themselves and then make their proposal. But that proposal will go through the pruning fork of the National Assembly, through the 9 years set up by our House rules in the course of making laws. You know, the committee level will look at it, scrutinize it, and know whether what they are presenting, in line with the public opinion, reflects the desire of the people this law is made for.
Yeah,
it has not gone through this whole 9 years, so we should be patient until we get to that level.
Yeah.
So the opinion will be incorporated.
We are due for a break, but we'll also dissect some more areas that calls for attention. I will come back to Mr. KABIR, YUSUF, and yourself in a moment. We take a break, and when we come back, the fear under the Buhari government that The media may be stifled and there are threats to press freedom in Nigeria. We'll look more into the details of what has become the blackout information campaign today across the media. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. There's been some uneasiness within the Nigerian media space. Practitioners are afraid, or they have the fear that if the trend goes on, we'll find ourselves in an environment or in a nation where the media is stifled and press freedom is totally dead. And that's why practitioners within the newspaper sectors today began a campaign they called Information Blackout. It was on the front pages of the media, of the major newspapers, like you see right there on your screen. And so tonight we are asking the National Assembly and the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, what do they mean about this bill? Are they aware of the fear and the threat in what they are doing will be for our society, not only for the media, for the Nigerian society at large? Honorable Benjamin KALU is the spokesperson of the House of Representatives, and Mr. KABIR YUSUF is the president of the Nigerian Newspapers Proprietors Association of Nigeria, and both of them have been discussing this matter. Let me come back to you, Mr. YUSUF. You heard what the Honorable said. I mean, a lot of us were aware of the processes of lawmaking, and perhaps he's hoping that we'll wait at some point. But let's look at the details of the issues, Mr. YUSUF. Give us some of the grievances of the practitioners in the sector on some of the activities of the National Assembly. What would those grievances be? What are your biggest fears in all of these media bills?
I think our biggest fears are actually borne out by what is happening to the broadcast media, which, as you know, is under regulation. It's not just the Press Council bill, it's also the broadcasting bill. Under the broadcasting bill, we know that television stations, radio stations have to be licensed, and these are periodically renewed or not. There are fines that are imposed based on, infringement of the code, and this is a decision that would normally, of course, be made by bureaucrats in the Ministry of Information. So these are the kind of this is the kind of laws that are now going to be applied to the press, and we think that the broadcast media itself needs to be freed from this, rather than us being lumped together and being brought under this act, whereby somebody decides who should be a journalist, somebody decides which newspaper or television should be licensed or not. So we want an independent mechanism that we ourselves, we will participate in, and the National Assembly, and even the public. And it is not that this is something that is unusual. It exists in many countries, like Britain, like India, which are very similar to our own history. So we want an independent national complaints or commission, which will look at the operations of the media. Where there are infringements, these are addressed in a independent body, not by the Ministry of Information, because we think that in order for the press to continue doing the work it is doing, there should be this latitude, which allows variety in the media. And I think this variety is what gives a balance. Every newspaper approaches the news of the day in its own way, and every television station. And I think the reader and the viewer should be able to decide, which one do I consume? Which one satisfies me? I think this is hysteria about fake news, which has come with the social media, is making us to be blind to the reality. And I want to remind us, the chief protagonist of fake news internationally is Mr. Donald Trump. And he has shown us that when he likes something, it is not fake news. It is the pieces of information out there that he doesn't like, some of which is true, that he will now label as fake news. So democracy is something that you have to build brick by brick. It's not something that, is given. And it's not something that should be taken for granted. And that's why we're appealing to the public, to the National Assembly. Let us not spite ourselves. Let's not cut our nose to spite our faces. Let us not say that because there are infringements of the media, you want to impose a draconian framework of law, which will prevent journalists from operating fairly freely as they do today. Because it's in our own interest that journalists are allowed to use their judgment to publish information, and we have mechanisms, we have checks within media organizations. No reporter goes straight out and publishes the information. We have editors, we have proprietors. These are people who also have codes of behavior. So let us improve this. Let us not jettison it and try to impose some kind of rule from the top that will curtail whatever exists now. Because this freedom we're enjoying is part of the democratic norms. It is what allows the opposition, it is what allows individual who is oppressed somewhere to have his say. And we are ready to work with the National Assembly to develop this framework, which is independent.
All right, Honorable, I'd like you to react to what Mr. Yusuf is saying. Some sectors some practitioners in the sector are saying that that bill should die or it should be killed. But what's your reaction? What will be the step of the National Assembly, the House, going from here?
Thank you, Sheil. I am the chairman media and public affairs in the House. And weekly, I interact with about 81 media platforms. I understand their relevance. I've also, in the course of my work, observed that beyond the 81 people, there are about 120 other media agencies who are not members of the Press Club, who also forms part of the people that take information from the National Assembly to the public space. Can I guarantee that all the information that they take out there are correct? The answer is no. Can I guarantee that that the information I give to them when I do press releases, press conference, they are represented exactly the way they are presented to be able to guide Nigerians in line with facts as they were? The answer is no. What then should we do to make sure that the fake news, as defined by the Honorable Statesman Yusuf here, that it starts and finishes with the definition given to it by Donald Trump? I don't agree fully that is the definition of fake news, because I know fake news involves information, misinformation, information underload, or information overload. That is with the intention of, defeating the essence of the facts, of misdirecting the people who accesses such information. Is it happening in our country? The answer is yes. Should it be controlled? The answer is yes. How well should it be controlled? Should it be done by only the statutory body? The answer is no. Should it be based, the practice code, should the practice code be based on wide consultation? The answer is yes. Where do we start? By drawing up a stakeholders administration list that involves people like him, who are experienced in the industry, who knows what is the bottlenecks that they meet day in, day out. Their input is relevant, because we want to make a piece of legislation that will outlive both us and himself in the sector. So, to answer your question, we are not against the independence of the press. We are actually upholding the principles of expression, the freedom of expression. And the Ninth Assembly have pledged that, and the Speaker repeated that today at the occasion I'm just coming from, that he would not support any bill that will gag the press.
We need to go now, but I need to extract this commitment from you that you will take this information and the grievances of the media practitioners in Nigeria to the Speaker and to the National Assembly, that this is what media practitioners are grieved about, and that you will commit that there will be more engagement with practitioners. That's perhaps the bottom line of what is being said. Give us 30 seconds and give us that commitment tonight, and we can hold you to that.
I want to commit to Nigerians, because I have the mandate of the leadership of the 9th Assembly, especially in the Speaker, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, who believes in the press. I want to commit that the opinion of the stakeholders from the press, the media sector, will be incorporated in framing the legal framework, the piece of legislation that is meant to regulate the industry. And I've just promised Mr. YUSUF a few minutes ago, I said a forum is going to be created for an interactive section between the Parliament and people like himself to deep dive on this piece of legislation and to fine-tune it to the best of the industry.
All right, Mr. YUSUF, let me get your final word in 30 seconds. What's your final word going forward from here? Nigerians are hearing, Nigerians are listening. 30 seconds, your final thought.
We will hold them to this pledge. I'm happy it is made on national television. But I want to remind our listeners and my friend, the Honorable, that the road to hell is sometimes paved with good intentions. Sometimes people set out, they say, look, we have this good intention, we want to do this. That's why we are not relaxing. We'll make sure that the good intention in the end produces good result.
Mr. KABIR YUSUF, the president of the Nigerian Newspapers Association, Proprietors Association of Nigeria, and Honorable Benjamin KALU, thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time tonight. It's well appreciated.